for those of you who don't already know me, I know some of you are students with us. Some of you are considering being students with us, may have already had a consultation. I'm Joe. I'm the founder of OneSource. I've been teaching MCAT for about 11 years now. I went to medical school prior to that, so I've been in this space for a really long time. I'm sometimes told that I don't look like I'm old enough for that, but trust me, I am. It might just be like the Zoom cosmetic thing on the on the camera, but um, I want to make this as interactive as possible. So you're all welcome to speak up, interrupt me as I go through this. There's not that much information here. And what's most pertinent is answering your questions. So please feel free to, like I said, interrupt me at any point. If you have particular questions, I'm sure everybody else has the very same questions. So don't hesitate to speak up if that is the case. I will try to pay attention to the chat, but I'm more likely to respond to the questions that people have here verbally, just because it's kind of hard to multitask while I'm doing all of this. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen because I'm going to want to walk you all through a lot of this stuff. I have a presentation that was kindly made for me by our director of operations, Colleen, who is in the last of these webinars, but she's not going to be able to make it today. So these are just a few of the questions we're going to be answering today as we go through all of this. First of all, who is this for? What will I get out of it? How much does it cost, etc. So, and again, please feel free to interrupt if you have any questions whatsoever. So first and foremost, this webinar is primarily for anybody who, or I'm sorry, this course is primarily for anybody who is interested in taking the MCAT, really at any point. We are going to be covering a ton of content during it, and many of you already know a lot of the content on the MCAT, I'm sure, because you've taken these classes in undergrad. A lot of you have taken the MCAT before, or taking courses like this in the past. And so I'm going to be operating under an assumption that you are somewhat prepared for the meetings and not that we're just starting from base, from the base level. We will have assignments before each class, and so that will help you get an understanding of what you do need to know coming in. And then if the class is going a little bit too fast for any individual person, I will also be uploading all of the recordings from all of the meetings that we have so that you can go back and review them as you are going through the post-class assignments as well. So if you're just coming to the MCAT, just getting started on content review, this is going to push you. This is definitely going to push the pace. But I think that's the most useful way of approaching this from the jump. If you feel comfortable the entire time that you're studying, you're probably not being as efficient as you possibly could. That said, and then on the flip side of that, many of you are probably prepping for January test dates. And so those of you who are doing that probably know a ton about this stuff. However, my goal in these classes is not just to go through and tell you every enzyme in glycolysis or every intermediate in the citric acid cycle. It's more to help you integrate ideas across disciplines, which is, if you've talked to me at all, the most important part of the MCAT, because it doesn't really care that much about your ability to regurgitate knowledge as it does your understanding of the bigger picture perspective, so that you can use your basic science knowledge base that you have to solve novel problems that should otherwise be above your pay grade as somebody just coming out of undergrad or in a master's program at this point. We'll go into the cost and everything here in a little bit. I'll tell you how to sign up, all of that stuff. And then obviously, like I've said at least 10 times already, that I'll want to answer all of your questions. So moving forward here, let's see what Colleen put in this thing for us. So this is just talking about who the course is for. I've already gone through that. It should be pertinent for everybody is my goal with this. So a few of the details here. First and foremost, the central core of this is going to be 36 hours of live online instruction. I'm the founder of the company. I've taught the MCAT the longest of anybody. I will be doing probably at least 70% of the teaching in this. Almost all of the Chem Phys, probably all of the biochem. I pass off PsychSoc because we have a couple of people who are frankly better than I am at that. And I'll pass on a lot of the car stuff as well for the exact same reason. I want to make sure that you have the best resources available. And so to that point, everybody who teaches for us at OneSource has scored a 525 or better on the MCAT and also has past teaching experience prior to coming to us. And then they've also gone through our training process, which takes on average, I would say, about a month to a month and a half per new person who comes in, despite the fact that they've had experience in the past. And then for this course, I'm also selecting amongst the people who've been with us the longest and the people who have the most experience having taught the specific disciplines that they're going to be teaching. In addition to whoever's giving the main lecture, which, like I said, will be myself most of the time, we'll also have at least one, maybe two, depending on how many people we do have sign up for this, of our tutors or of our other instructors who are manning the chat at any given time throughout these meetings. The point there is for any of you who have joined our webinars in the past, so that you can ask questions in the chat and just get quick responses without having to speak up in front of everybody, and also without having to derail the discussion too much. However, you will always be invited to speak up. If it turns out that a lot of people, that we have sort of a divide in the class, a lot of people want to, let's say, continue talking about what equilibrium constant is, but a lot of the other students want to go on and discuss things like acids and bases or solubility, just for instance, then I will continue at the pace of the course that we had discussed previously. And we will send one of the other instructors into a breakout room for anybody who wants to go with them. That way we can, if the class does need to divide, it can, to make sure that this is pertinent for everybody. Because the last thing I want is to slow down and hold up some of you who are going to be taking the test a little bit sooner, or who might be a little bit more prepared, but I also don't want to leave people behind. And so we'll always have the option to deviate in that direction if we need to. The personalized study plan on this is difficult when it comes to a course. We have really hung our hats in this company on our ability to personalize the process, because I'm huge on not making this a cookie cutter process, and creating a course kind of goes in the face of that, unless we're really careful about ensuring that each of you is still able to get that touch of personalization that has been our mainstay to this point. To that end, I've decided that I would like for each of you to be able to meet with somebody at some point to work on coming up with a study plan throughout this. So you will have a study plan that is dictated by our course syllabus already. I'll show you what that looks like in a minute. That has things for you to do before each meeting and things for you to do after each meeting. And those should fill in the gaps between the Monday, Wednesday, Friday meetings that we're going to plan on having for this course. However, I want to be able to help you organize your approach to other resources outside of this that you may already be using. UWorld, for instance, is something that most of our students use. If you decide to work with us in this course, you can go ahead and get UWorld at our discounted rate if you don't already have a subscription. I strongly recommend that. And then if you do decide that you prefer to do tutoring after signing up for the course, then we will offer some degree of discounted rate on the tutoring. A lot of that's going to have to do with how many people want to do it, because we do have finite tutors, given that we only hire people at 525 and better. I think only about 100 to 200 people get that score each year on the MCAT. And so, those individuals are in relatively short supply. And then the last part of this is the custom 1SM student portal. This is something we're getting ready to roll out for our tutoring students as well as for the entire course. I've been working, frankly, too many hours on this week. I probably put 60 hours into it, just building this user interface on the web where if you've worked with us in the past or seen any of our stuff in the past, we use these Google Drive catacombs that I've built over the course of years. I'm putting a new skin on that and putting it in the student portal just to make it easier to access, more user-friendly. And I'm going to demo some of that for you today. And then the course will be built entirely in that so that everything is clean and easy to work with. So the next things that I want to talk to you about here are what we're going to be doing in the live online session. So here in a minute, I'll show you kind of the user interface that we have for this. If any of you have looked at our webinar videos or done tutoring with us in the past, you will already know what I'm talking about. We use OneNote and we use these artist pen displays to draw things out. We paste in practice questions. We'll be doing a ton of both of those things. So there will be a major didactic component to this, but I also want to show you how to apply all of the stuff that we're going to be talking about in the didactic side of things to passages, because you can be fantastic at all of the content, as many of you may know, but still not translate that knowledge base to points on the MCAT. And so it's going to be really important for us during this course to do both of those things effectively. We're also going to give you, like I said earlier, access to all of the meeting videos. Those will go up really, really quickly, unlike some of the webinar videos that we've done in the past, because the webinars are just something we're providing for free, whereas this is a paid service. And so we'll be sure that they go up within 24 to 48 hours after the meetings, if not quicker. I need to talk to Mike. Mike is our video editor, just to ensure that I want to say 24, but I'm going to say 48 for sure. Just need to talk to him about whether 24 is feasible. Then again, I talked about the instructors already. These are the people who have been our tutors, but I've also selected from amongst our tutors the people who have taught this the most and who I know are better than me at specific things. And so the things I don't teach, I'm only going to not teach them if I know somebody's better than I am. And so that's where we're going to go with that. Personalized study plan. Again, I talked about this a little bit ago. I want each of you who does this course to be able to meet with one of us, if you so choose, so that we can talk about not just your passing through the course, but also your larger MCAT study process. This is a 6-week course. And so if anybody's familiar with the MCAT, 6 weeks isn't going to cut it, frankly. We do have a few tutors who told me that they studied for like less than 6 weeks for their MCAT, but that is not the vast majority of people. I can't imagine getting it done in 6 weeks. And so we want to make sure that from whatever direction you're coming in, that you have a good direction leaving this course as well. And then also throughout the process, we're going to give you a bunch of stuff to do. So there's not going to be that much extra studying you do outside of what we give you inside the course, but we want to make sure that you have a good trajectory moving forward as well. And down here, you'll see that this talks about this advanced course offered at a discounted rate for bootcamp students. This is not something that we've started building out yet. However, I know that at the end of this course, there are going to be some of you who have gotten a lot of value out of it and would like to continue exploring some of these topics in more extreme detail. And so I'm already kind of planning out an advanced course that will be able to be added on at the end. I think somebody may have their mic unmuted. If you don't mind just muting if you're going to be like talking to people in the background. No pressure though. Anyway, so that's what the advanced course is referring to. The discount associated with it is going to depend a lot on the price for it, how much it's going to cost to run it. So I'll have more information about that as we get closer to the end. A lot of what we'll do with that advanced course too is going to have to do with feedback that each of you has from this. So what does this say? Let me move the Zoom thing out of the way. Oh, custom 1SM student drive. This is, as many of you know, we have a whole bunch of resources in the Google Drives you get when you sign up to do tutoring with us. We're not going to pull all of this over because I want to use only the things that are pertinent to our lectures that we're going to be giving in the course. So there are going to be a lot of quizzes though that don't already exist in the 1SM tutoring drives. I've been creating a ton of content the last couple of weeks in preparation for this course because I want you to have a series of quizzes that you can do prior to the meetings to test your understanding of topics, and then resources that you can dive into deeper if you don't do very well on those quizzes. Because like I said, we're not going to be introducing you to the most fundamental components of this in any of the meetings. We will go over some basic things if they're incredibly high yield, but I want to make sure that everybody's getting value out of this. And so to start from square one just doesn't make any sense. So we'll have quizzes at the beginning and then quizzes at the end as well. Those won't be the same quizzes, I promise. That way you can assess your understanding after the course, and then you can go back and rewatch. And I don't just mean after the entire course, I mean after each meeting. And then you can go back and rewatch parts of the lecture that didn't make sense to you whenever you went and did the quizzes. That way you can directly apply the knowledge you get immediately after. This thing down here is really cool. So some of you may already be aware of, I think many of you, especially if you've done tutoring with us, are aware of our MCAT AI assistant. What we did here was we took GPT-4 and then fine-tuned the model using 5,000 hours of our own tutoring videos so that it could be an expert in the MCAT. This has been a big hit for people for the last few months. I've been watching our API spend just increase linearly for a few months, which is totally fine with me. It's a free resource on our website. Even if you don't work with us, you can use this. However, we're getting ready to launch version 2.0 of this. And that version 2.0 is going to cost us a lot more money to make, and also a lot more money in API spend, because what we're going to do is give it vision. And by vision, I mean, we're going to give you the ability to screenshot passages and screenshot questions and just dump them into that thing and hit enter. And then it should take it 10 to 20 seconds. And then it will give you back a full explanation. You can also provide additional context. So for instance, you can show it a graph and say, give me an interpretation of this graph, and then pull out the information that would be most pertinent for this passage or for answering this question. This should be a huge deal. I'm really excited about it, super optimistic about it. It's going to be paywalled on our main website for people who aren't doing tutoring and who aren't doing the course. But if you sign up to do the course, you get free access to this thing. So anyway, that is pretty much it for the resources, quizzes, all of the meeting videos, all of the access to the MCAT AI assistant. And then obviously you'll have access to me as well. You all already do. I do a decent job responding to stuff, I think. And we're also going to create a community discussion on the course website so that you can communicate with each other if you would like, without having to share actual contact information. So you can you can make your name whatever you want on the course portal if you want to remain anonymous. And that way you can pull on each other's knowledge bases as well, because you are learning things. And one of the best ways to learn is to explain to somebody else who doesn't have maybe as deep of a grasp on this stuff as you do. So the total cost for the course, whenever I first built it out the other day, was $1,600. I had to calculate a whole bunch of factors into this, including the cost of my own time, because frankly, I don't have infinite time. However, I've wanted to make sure that we're able to get this price down for you as much as possible. This is already like half of what the bigger company courses are, where they bring in less experienced instructors than we have. And they give you hard copy books, which we're not going to do. But in terms of other resources, it's going to be relatively similar offering. So we're already at about half, but then we've decided to give a 25% discount if you sign up before Monday of this coming week. I'm already playing with the idea of maybe extending that by a few days just because this webinar is coming up so close to that deadline. And I want to give you all time to think about it. We're also offering the ability to pay over the course of a couple of weeks. So I think the link on the site currently has you signing up and paying in 6 weekly installments. That way you don't have to bear the entire burden of this all at once. I'm also happy to talk about additional payment plans on a one-on-one basis, I think. And so just let me know if you want to come up with a different structure, and I'm sure that we can work something out on that front. And then for those of you doing tutoring with us, you're going to get another 33% discount on top of that 25% discount that gets this thing down to 50% off. The reason I'm doing that is because tutoring is a higher price point already. And so I want to make sure that I'm not giving the impression that I'm just trying to get as much money out of each of you who's doing tutoring as possible. That's not my goal here. My goal is to build this very much up in the long term. I actually was talking to our marketing team the other day. They think that I'm insane for doing the tutoring at the price point that I currently am, just because it's lower than the rest of the industry. Yet we have more expertise and better numbers, et cetera. One of them asked me if I wanted to file to be a nonprofit organization this year because of that, but we're not going to do that. So just so you know, that's the aim here. And then in addition to all of this, we're also going to give you the ability to bring in other people. And for each additional student that you bring in who isn't already working with us, you'll get a $200 referral bonus. So if any of you know each other, I mean, I don't want to tell you how to hack my system, but if any of you know each other and neither of you is working with us, maybe pick one of you to be the initial student and then split the $200 that student gets from bringing in the other one. You know, like that's just how you can get as much out of me as possible on this. So that is it for this spiel right here. I am going to show you some of the user portal that we have. I'm pulling that in right now, if I can find it. I think it's in the same window. Yeah, it's right here. So the user portal right now is primarily, so it's on this website that I'm building. It's going to be our new website eventually, but we're using it mostly just for interacting with students right now. So it still has that schedule a free consultation thing right on the front that it always has. And then it's going to have portals for tutoring, for the bootcamp, for resources, generally speaking. Most of this is going to be centered around the bootcamp right now, though. So the first thing, and I showed this last week earlier this week whenever I did the first webinar as well. But the first one is this My MCAT portal. It's going to have a summary of basically everything that's going on with you right at the beginning here. So your goal score, your test date, starting score, best full length score, and then you're going to be able to edit and update this. I put goals for each week and then got lazy and put goal 1, goal 2, goal 3. You can make your goals whatever you want them to be. It'll also tell you how many tutoring hours you have remaining if you do have tutoring hours with us. But if you don't, then it just won't say anything there. And if you have a tutor, then it will show you that person's name and contact info as well. Once you scroll down from here, there's a little box to enter more full-length exams. As soon as you enter things in that box, this will update itself. And that way we can keep better track of your scores. This is broken for me right now, but I'll have it fixed. I was messing with it earlier today, maybe 5 minutes before this meeting. I accidentally broke it. So unfortunately, but this is going to have a series of graphs that show you your progress across all of your full-length exams, as well as the subsections in your full-length exams. So you'll be able to see how your Chem Phys section is trending over time, for instance, or how your biochem section is trending over time. And all that comes just from entering the data in this form and hitting submit. And then this down here will have all of the videos from all of your stuff with us. These are tutoring videos from a student right now, just because I needed something to fill this, because, you know, obviously we haven't done the course yet, so it doesn't make sense that the course videos would be in here, but the course videos will be in here eventually, so that if you do want to come in, you can literally just and watch one of them. You can just click that link and then watch the video simply by clicking this, maximizing it, and it's all hosted in YouTube. So you can do all the same. Well, I just accidentally clicked YouTube. It's all hosted in YouTube, so you can do all the same YouTube stuff that you would do in terms of, you know, watching it at 2x speed or whatever you want on that front. So relatively high production value, just one central hub for you to access everything, hence the name One Source. That's what I wanted whenever I started this company to begin with. So that's relatively seamless, and the tutoring or the course videos will be the same way. So that's the main hub page, the My MCAT page. We also have, we're going to have the syllabus file page in this as well. Right now, I have this bootcamp course calendar that I wanted to show you also. All of the meetings from the bootcamp will show up in here for each of you. You can sort them across section. For instance, if you're like, oh, I just want to go back and look at the meetings where we talked about like biochem, you can just click the biochem thing up here and it'll show you like the meetings where biochem is going to be a topic of discussion. If you want to go back and watch all of them, then you can look at it this way. This is the month of December, month of January. You can also break it down into weekly views. So yeah, this shows you just right here at the very top. Your syllabus assignments will show up in here as well. I just don't have that linked in just yet. But that way everything's in here. And then if you want to see what is going to be going on in any one of these meetings, for instance, you can just click, well, let's say we want to see what this first meeting's about. You can click it and it will show you what we're covering in the meeting, the assignments that you need to do before that meeting starts, the assignments assigned afterward. And then there will also be a link to the YouTube video of that particular meeting so that if you do want to click it, I've just got a sample one in here because again, we haven't done this course. So I've got a sample one in here right now so that you can go back and rewatch any of that. This is just from one of the webinars that I did relatively recently. So anyway, that is primarily most of this. There is also a section down here near the bottom where you can see what we're doing in each of the classes as well. It's kind of redundant with respect to the calendar, but it's just like another way of visualizing this stuff. Anyway, any questions from there? That is that is the bulk of my prepared spiel that I had to give. But I'd love to answer any of your questions. I'm sure other people have the same questions, so please feel free to ask.
So it starts on December 18th. When does it end?
January 26th is the last day that I have scheduled right now.
Okay, thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. And if it seems like everybody's getting a ton out of this and the feedback, because I'm going to be talking to you all the whole time, then we will just roll this straight into that advanced course from there. And so obviously, it's not like you get 2 courses for free. You don't get the advanced course for free, but we would make it segue logically so that everybody who's in this, it feels seamless. You don't have to sign up for extra stuff. You just have to fill out another payment link. Yeah, Angela, what were you going to ask?
Hi, Joe.
How are you doing?
I'm good.
Awesome.
Nice to see you again.
Yeah, yes.
Uh, I was just wondering, aside from like tutoring separately, like individually, how much access would do people get kind of just through the course itself outside of the like lectures themselves?
Access to what? Sorry.
Oh, like if we have questions for tutors and stuff like that, or I guess access to like if we're working on, I don't know, practice questions, can we email you, or would that come out of a separate, like the tutoring hours separately outside of the course?
That is a fantastic question. So kind of my motivation on putting the discussion board into it, which you can see that's like over here on the portal. Like this will be where you click to go to that, is to have each other, be able to answer each other's stuff, but then we'll also have a special spot where the tutors comments are marked. And so I'll have some people responding to stuff in there. So I recommend that, but also the MCAT AI, I don't think I've asked it a question it doesn't know lately. And so that thing's pretty good. So I always recommend going to that first. Realistically, if we get the enrollment in this course that I'm hoping to get, then I'm going to have a really hard time responding to everything because I'm also managing the practice test project we're doing, the tutoring program, and the whole company. So me personally, I'll always respond to stuff during the meetings. We've got 2 hours scheduled for each meeting. So, 3 meetings a week at 2 hours per meeting. I'll be shocked if every single one of them doesn't run overtime just because whatever's in front of my face at the time is the most important thing to me. But in terms of responding to a bunch of emails, it's going to be difficult for me to do that. Somebody will, but it probably won't be me.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you. So Jada, do you have a question? And then I'll also address the questions in the chat as soon as I hear that question.
Yeah, so I was just wondering, as someone who is kind of just starting the process of content review, do you think that like through this 6-week process that someone like me would be able to gain enough of that to then go straight into like practice exams and just straight review like that afterwards? Or do you think that it would require more content review prior to or afterwards?
So I think that It's a really good question. I've got a nuanced answer for you. Unfortunately, I'm never going to give you black and white answers. So my nuanced answer here is that your first practice tests are going to be rough almost no matter what. We actually have 3 of them, I think, built into this course that we'll have you take. However, given that you're just starting on content review, you can opt not to do that. However, what we're trying to do by giving you early tests is to just throw you in the deep end and have you learn to swim, so to speak. So, my goal would be for this to be your initial passive content review and for it to be complete and for it to be thorough. That way you're in a much better position to get started on, let's say, UWorld questions and full length exams as soon as you get done. Now, I don't want you to start burning any of the AAMC exams until you're getting a certain percentage of questions correct on UWorld, just because it doesn't really make, if you're not getting 50% right on UWorld, for instance, it doesn't make any sense to do the AAMC test because you're just not going to get a good score. Maybe the unscored sample, and then you could come back, you could pull back a little bit and do some third-party practice exams. We're getting ready to launch some of those that should be useful for that. But yeah, so I think that by pushing the pace on this as you go through content, which is what we're going to do, and that's the goal with this. A lot of people will say, oh, I'm going to do all of my content over winter break, and then they get through like 3 chapters of physics. By signing up for this, my goal is to push your pace as you go through so that you actually are able to get through that, even though it's going to feel like you're drinking water from a fire hydrant. That's the analogy they always give with med school. So you should be ready to take practice exams because you should have seen everything by the end of this. It's going to be a lot of work, and it's not going to be the most fun thing if you haven't done content review before, but it's going to put you in a much better position. I'm sorry if that was a super long-winded answer too, but does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem at all.
Can I just ask a quick follow-up to
yeah, for sure.
So you said if we're not scoring well enough on, I guess, UWorld, we shouldn't take these double AMC tests. But you said there's like 3 tests integrated in this course. Where are those tests coming from?
Yeah, so those tests are going to come from, at least one of them is going to come from our resources. We're going to think about probably using, whenever I said the double AMC tests, I wasn't meaning the unscored sample. That one I've starting to think of as not really counting because people do a little bit better on that one than the rest of them. And if you burn that one, you do still have 5 more. So I'm thinking that we put that one actually maybe the very end. So we're going to have at least one of ours and that test. And then whether we do the 3rd test or not, we're actually still debating back and forth internally. Okay. So yeah, I know that that's kind of a wishy-washy answer, but I'm thinking about this as deeply as I can. And I really don't want people to burn tests if they're not ready for them. And so it may be the case that some people do one test and some people do a different test at that point as well. In which case we would just have 2 different review sessions. So like we wouldn't have everybody review the test together if if people have taken different tests, and that's on us at that point. So we would just do an extra one.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so I've got a bunch of questions in the chat here that I'm going to respond to, and then we can take more verbally. So first one asked was, what if our MCAT date is earlier than the end date of the course? We talked about this in the last meeting, actually. And then I'll answer whoever just raised, I think it was Sana raised your hand. I will answer your question in a second too. But so this one is saying, what if the MCAT date is earlier than the end of the course? This is a fantastic question because I did want to start this 1 week earlier than we are. But when I looked at everybody's winter break, it turned out that a lot of people were going to be taking finals during the first week of the course. And I just couldn't justify making the course only 5 weeks. 6 is already a little bit more contracted than I wanted, but I wanted to get as much in as possible. And honestly, 6 weeks for content is a pretty good pace. So answer to your question, though, is that we will, for those of you who are in that situation, send me a screenshot of your exam schedule receipt, and we can set you up with a portion of this course at a prorated discount. Because I don't want you to have to pay for lectures that are going to happen after you get done taking the MCAT. That doesn't make any sense at all. So that's the solution I have for that. So for instance, I think I already did this with somebody last week who is taking the MCAT like the week before the course ends. And so we just gave her a discount that was basically 1/6 off of the course. Okay, so next question in here was, will there be another boot camp offer in 2024 if we're unable to do this one? Short answer, I hope so. I think there will be. I don't know exactly when the start date for that would be. I need to look at what test dates make sense. And I want, frankly, I want to get a lot of feedback from all of you. The reason that all this has been so good with this company so far since I started it about 3 years ago is because I talk to all of you all the time and you keep me up to speed on what's going on in MCAT space. You're one of my best resources. And so if it seems like it makes sense, then we'll absolutely do it. You know, if we could start one halfway through this one, we'll do it. It's just a matter of getting enough people to sign up for the course that we can make the price point worth it. Obviously, the more we charge per person who signs up, the better in terms of like we could have run it at a really low number of people, but I also don't want to nickel and dime all of you and I want to make this super affordable. So yeah, long story short, yes, I think there will be one that runs in 2024. I just don't have a great idea about details right now. Winter break is just such an obvious time to do this because so many people are available to do it. So for sure. Feel free to ask any follow-up questions on that too if you want. Next question here from Sarah was, what are the times for the classes? So, oh yeah, so the times for the classes, all of this is on the website. Let me go ahead and pull it up really quick, just so you can reference it yourself. So the times for the classes as we currently have it set up are 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern time on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. The reason that we chose to do it like that was because we wanted to make sure that everybody is actually available. Well, maybe it is on the, is it on the website? Oh yeah, it says it somewhere. Yeah, it says it right here. I don't know why that link's messed up either. So yeah, 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern time on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I just wanted to make sure it was after everybody's work days and other maybe familial obligations. However, if it turns out that a lot of you who sign up can't do a specific day, then we'll just move that meeting. Or if half of you can't do it and half of you only can do that one day, then we'll split it and do 2 meetings for that one. I don't want to do that for every single one of them. Otherwise, my overhead goes through the roof, but we'll do it occasionally. I'm going to be as reasonable as I possibly can be about all of this, just to make it as good for you as it can be. Next question was, could we see an example of the AI 2.0 tool works better? No, because it doesn't exist right now. That's the only problem with that. But we know exactly what it looks like. I just only have it in command line at the moment. And so because it's in command line, it won't mean anything to you. We're working on discretely packaging the data to ship to the API. I know that that's kind of gibberish as well. That's probably only going to take us about 2 weeks of dedicated work, maybe less than that, depending on how available my developer is. My developer right now he's actually in undergrad. He's phenomenal. And so he's finishing up finals this coming week, and then he's going to be pedal to the metal on this. I've already almost figured it out myself, though. I think it may just be one day of working with him and me. But yeah, so long story short, no, can't see it because we don't have it. But it's basically going to be just like the one we have, except whenever you drag and drop image files, it will accept those image files, and then you hit enter, and while it's thinking, it will be doing a meta-analysis on that image, sending it to the DALL-E 3 API through GPT-4 Turbo, and then we'll send back an explanation once it's read the image. And then Angela asked, how many hours per day outside of lectures should we plan to put in for the homework? That's going to be so variable from person to person. Some of you are super efficient. Some of you are super inefficient. So I want to say that I think a reasonable amount of time, my perspective on this has changed a lot. When I was in your position, when I was studying for the MCAT, I would spend every waking moment that I wasn't in class or at my job working on this. I don't think that that's a great option for most people, just because you tend to lose your mind a little bit. I'm a little bit more resilient to that than I think most people are as well. So I've come to the conclusion, just having worked with a ton of students over the last several years, that 4 to 6 hours a day of MCAT prep sustained over the course of a long period of time is way better than trying to do like 12 hours in any one sitting or any one day. That's just not sustainable. And I say 12 as an exaggeration. So I'm going to say somewhere around 4 to 6 hours per day throughout the process, not 7 days a week, some maybe 5 days a week, maybe 6 days a week. However, if you're a really inefficient studier, if you like to scroll through social media constantly, then it's going to be more than that because you're not actually studying 4 to 6 hours. Just started my MCAT content review this week. Can I still take the course and be able to take the MCAT? No. So if you just started MCAT content review, then at the end of this course in 6 weeks, you'll be in a lot better position than you are now, but you'll still have a long ways to go before you're ready to take the MCAT. I just want to be frank about that. This is, I mean, unless you are one of the rare, hyper brilliant, extremely efficient, smarter than me, frankly, people who can do it in that amount of time, prepping for the MCAT sufficiently takes way more than 6 weeks. This is supposed to be a component of your MCAT prep. It should be the component of it for this 6-week period. But if you don't have more on the beginning or the end, then this frankly won't work. And I, not to downplay the service. I think this should be the best 6-week course that there is available, just because I've done this forever. But that's just the nature of this test. All right, I made it to the end of the questions in the chat. Does anybody else have any out loud questions? We can also do more chat questions. Totally up to you all.
Hey, Joe, I have a question real quick.
Yeah, absolutely.
So for people that signed up for the tutoring, how would this, I guess, supplement? Like, what would be the most efficient way for, like, if you were to sign up for this boot camp and have the tutoring, I guess, like, sessions too? Like, what would that look like?
Yeah, this is a really good question. I think this is going to probably look a little bit different for different people, but the way that I would recommend to do it is to use the tutoring hours to supplement what we're doing here by, the beauty of the tutoring is that we always start the meetings by asking you what questions you have on any of the stuff you've been going through. And I always say not to abdicate responsibility for making a lesson plan, but to instead make sure that whatever we're going to talk about is pertinent to you. And so you can get your base knowledge. This will lay down a ton of base knowledge for you. So then you don't have to spend tutoring hours, which are just inherently more expensive per hour, talking about that stuff. And you can use those as ways of jumping off into different things that maybe were challenging for you. So for instance, let's say we're doing an acids-based discussion here, and we're talking about equivalence point and 1/2 equivalence point, and how the ratio between conjugate base and acid in the Henderson-Hasselbalch equation goes to 1 the closer you get to the 1/2 equivalence point. And you're like, yeah, I got kind of lost there. I'm not really sure how Henderson-Hasselbalch is pertinent, or I don't know what that ratio actually means or how to solve it mathematically. Then that's where you would start going to the tutor for that. That's where the tutoring meeting could start. I would think that probably, so I usually recommend on average about 2 tutoring meetings a week for people doing the tutoring. If you're doing this, then I don't know that you'll be doing 2 tutoring meetings a week, just because at that point, that's a lot of meetings for MCAT in a week. However, maybe you would do 2 like super short tutoring meetings per week, because, we can vary the time that you spend in the tutoring meeting. That's no big deal at all. That's just built into it. So, does that answer your question? I can also be more specific, but I just want to make sure that I'm answering your question adequately.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem at all. Let's see. Reading questions. Emma said, just to be sure, UWorld subscription is necessary for the bootcamp. No, the UWorld subscription is not necessary for the bootcamp. You don't need to bring in anything from outside for this bootcamp. If I made the UWorld subscription necessary, I think that would be a little bit problematic, because we're not packaging it in to the bootcamp. If I did that, then it would make the price a lot more. However, you're welcome to buy UWorld from us if you do the bootcamp, or frankly, if you don't do it, you can get a discount from us for that, just because we bulk purchase from them. But yeah, so yeah, UWorld's not necessary for the bootcamp. We will assign other things like quizzes and stuff like that. Sana, did you have another question, or is your hand still just up from the previous one?
Oh, I still have my question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, my bad.
That's
I thought you had asked before, because it's like you raised your hand and then I guess somebody else talked. So my bad.
So my question was, you mentioned earlier, are there separate sessions for like reviewing like scheduled exams that we've taken throughout the course? And then also, like, is there like, if we're doing like the pre-quizzes and then the quizzes after the classes, are they being reviewed, or are we just provided like a answer key.
Yeah, we'll provide a key, and probably for the ones that are the most difficult, we'll provide like video explanations as well for those quizzes. But I'm gonna make it all interactive on just like through the web portal. So you'll know if you got things right or wrong
Gotcha.
on the quizzes. And then your question to asking about whether we're going to review the practice exams in class. My thought on that right now is that I'm trying to think about how to keep as much personalization, but also do this in a course format because, frankly, the course, it gives us the ability to be way cheaper than the personalized one-on-one. And so the idea I've had on this is that whenever people have taken the practice tests, I would like to see them submit the questions and passages that were most problematic for them. I have a strong feeling there's going to be convergence there because I've gone through these practice tests with a lot of people over a lot of years, and there are some passages that I've never seen on them because people tend to figure that out themselves, or they're just a little bit easier. And there's some passages and questions that I see every single time I do it, and so we'll focus on those. I already have a pretty good idea of what those will be, just because having done it, but I want to make sure that it's relevant to all of you. And so we'll say once the practice test is over, submit the things that are most pressing for you. And then that's what we'll focus on in those reviews. A lot of the review is going to be, I'm going to show you just exactly how I would go through that stuff, outlining like everything that I'm thinking about as I go through, how I would predict questions, things to pay attention to, and really just as important as what to pay attention to, also what not to pay attention to, because there's some key giveaways, especially like in cars, that there are some things that you just don't need to read. Because if you try to read everything, if you're a slow reader as I am, then you just won't finish on time. And so that's a lot of what we'll talk about as well. So this is kind of strategy oriented stuff here.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. Jordan asked, how do you recommend most efficiently doing content review, i.e. what sources to pull from? Yeah, so there's a lot of stuff we can use here. I tend to, so when we're doing tutoring, I tend to recommend to people, I'll ask people in the tutoring consultation meeting how they prefer to learn. Some people prefer to learn just by grinding it out through reading textbooks. I will say don't ever do that if you're not taking notes, just because you're not going to retain things. So I'll help you think about ways of taking notes. And that's something that I want to go over in this course too, is just like helping you all get better at studying, because that's a skill. That's like teaching you to fish versus giving you fish. Honestly, like that might, if there's one thing to take away, that might be it. Because when you get into medical school, being efficient is going to become way more important than it ever has been for you. I know it was for me. I was super inefficient in undergrad, but I just like put in long hours and crush everything because of that. But when I got in med school, I had to totally change up the way that I did everything. And so we'll talk some about that. But then also, so some people will use books for content. Some people will use Anki. Some people won't. Some people will use some of the Khan Academy videos. Some people won't. We do have a setup way of moving through the Kaplan books and the Khan Academy videos together, because there are some of the Kaplan chapters that are frankly garbage. And so we want to make sure that, well, not garbage, I mean, they're textbooks, but we want to make sure that you have multiple different options for seeing everything on this. So a lot of what we're going to give you in this course specifically to do is going to be our content, because I've been told that I'm not allowed to specific for this course specifically assign other people's stuff. But I will say, here is a list of resources you can use to get more information on this once you've looked through the content that we're giving you here. But the quizzes, I'm making all of these right now. Some of our tutors are going to play a little bit of a role in this as well. We'll make sure you have plenty of stuff to go through. And then based on how you perceive you learn best, that's what the personalized study plan building thing is going to be for. We can work with you to come up with a study schedule that leverages resources that are most aligned with your preferred learning style. Because there, like I said, there are a lot of different ways to move through this, and we want to pick the one that's the least miserable for you. Obviously, we want to pick one that's effective, but in the giant tent of what is effective, we want to find what is also not miserable. I'm sorry for my incredibly long-winded answers to these things, by the way. I just want to make sure that I'm addressing everything, and I can't see any of your faces, and so it's I have no feedback. Thanks, Emma. I really appreciate it. Emma said she loved my answers for anybody watching this video after the fact. I'm not making that up. Thank you, Jordan. I appreciate that as well. Any other questions on any of this? I'm from the Midwest and it's super awkward for me to sit with silence. It's like so hard. But I'm trying to give you all the opportunity to speak up and ask questions or to type things in the chat. Can so Emma asked if I could extend the early birds discount thing to Wednesday for the rest of the group. That's a good question. Sure. All right, we'll do that. I was already thinking about doing it anyway, because I do want to make sure that, so the reason that I made the early bird discount to begin with is I want to make sure that we have enough people to run this course, because if there are 3 people in the course or whatever, I think we already have more than 3, but if we have a really small number of people, then this is going to frankly take me a ton of time, and I'm going to spend a lot of money on paying tutors and instructors to be involved as well, and to expedite building the MCAT AI thing. So I need to make sure that we're not just going to totally hemorrhage money on this thing. And so I will extend it to Wednesday, but I will not probably extend it past that. Just FYI. But I mean, I think it makes sense. Like I know that this webinar ran up a little bit closer to the Monday deadline than I intended for it to. And so extending, I'm good with extending to Wednesday. So you have my official word. I will extend it to Wednesday. I'll update the website as soon as this meeting is over. We will move it to Wednesday, I think. I'll talk to the marketing people, see what they actually want to do on that. We have a fun relationship where I say things and then we have to do them. And I'm not good at the marketing stuff. I just hate trying to talk people into things. Yeah, absolutely, Jordan. You definitely can. So Jordan asked if you can email me if you have questions regarding your personal situation. For sure. I'm happy to work with people on any of this stuff. If you're open to, and I don't just mean Jordan, but if any of you feels you may have a unique situation on this requiring maybe a different sort of payment structure or or just a different timeline for setting things up, you're welcome to just say it right now or type it in the chat right now. I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but there's a good chance that whatever you're going to ask is also relevant for somebody else, because we have a dozen or so people in here right now. And then also I'm going to send this video to a few people who couldn't make it, who asked whether I could send it out. Kellen asked, how is the payment installed? So the payment plan right now that we have set up, if you click sign up today on the website, it takes you to a page where you can enter your payment info. And I've got it set up to charge in 6 weekly installments, just to make this a little bit more bearable for the amount that has to go out. Whenever I was prepping for MCAT, I had frankly no money at all. And so I totally understand that and want to do as much as I can to make this not awful. So it's currently 6 weekly installments. I mean, you're welcome to pay in 1 if you want, but right now it's 6. Let's see. I got another one. Oh, Henry, what was your question? Sorry.
Yeah, if you consistently have to miss, if one day of the week doesn't work, is it still worthwhile to enroll in the course? Are you like, if we watch the recording, is that sufficient? Are you getting the same value out of it, or it's too interactive for you to watch the recording and get what you need out of it?
I think that the most of the interactive component, from what I've experienced doing these webinars, because we started doing webinars a while ago as a means of seeing what does and doesn't work for the course. The idea is for people to be able to speak up whenever they want, in which case, to the degree that you would be somebody who does that, then there is maybe some difference there. But most of the time, people are going to be either asking questions in the chat or just voting in the polls that I give out. I do probably, like, I don't know, some of you have seen these. I do probably maybe 10 to 20 polls during the course of a given webinar. And so it'll be the same for the course. And so if that's the case, you can just write down, as you're sitting there watching the video, you could just write down what you would vote for, and then you get the same sort of feedback. So missing it, definitely not, and missing it and rewatching the video is definitely not as valuable as being there in real time. It also having that real time component does hold you more accountable and make you do it in a time when maybe you don't feel like being in there, frankly. But I would say it's hard for me to quantify it. Maybe you get 70% of the value. I'm just throwing out a number there on if you just rewatching the video.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, if you have a day that doesn't work for you, then we can also ask everybody else who's in the course if that day could be moved as well. I want to be really flexible on this because we're not going to have 1,000 people in the course. You know, I think that if we have 20 people in the course, that'll be a good number, and that's a small enough cohort that we can send out a bunch of Google Forms and try to optimize around all of this. But I'm
Okay.
going to have a strong bias toward the dates that I've already selected, just because that's what dates people signed up for.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. Let me catch up on questions in the chat really quick. Sana said, would you recommend any prep now before the course? So generally speaking, my recommendations on MCAT prep are to get an Anki deck that you like. That's not my number one recommendation. It's just the first one that came to my mind. Number one recommendations, AMC and UWorld. Those are the two indispensable resources in my opinion. However, whenever you're using those resources, you have to be very thorough about reviewing them. It's not the questions you do, it's how you review them that matters. So to that, I would say, you know, those things are important. Don't start AMC until you're a little bit closer to your test. You can start UWorld whenever. I would also say that coming up with some major primary resource is helpful. I don't like Anki for this, though we have had students be really successful with it because some of the tutors disagree with me. But Anki as a primary resource is kind of fraught in my mind because it leads to just memorizing what the cards look like. And so you have to be a little bit more thorough with yourself, almost subconsciously whenever you're doing it, or not subconsciously, subvocally, asking yourself, okay, do I really understand this? Or how could this be different in a different way whenever you're going through Anki as a primary resource? I prefer people get either videos or books and then go through them methodically, taking notes on the things they know they don't know. And you can understand what you know and don't know by quizzing yourself on the stuff ahead of time. I always tell people, if you're going through the Kaplan chapters, read the learning objectives and answer them out loud to the room before you start reading through the book. That way, by answering them out loud, you've got a good understanding of what you knew and didn't know. And so if you read through something that you know you just said, you're going to know that. And don't write that down. That's a waste of your time. But then if you read through something that represented a gap in your knowledge or in your explanation you just gave to the wall, then you can write that stuff down, but write it down in your own words as concisely as possible. And you can have, from that point, you have a study guide you can review. And then you can constantly consolidate that study guide, occasionally coming back to the primary resource and adding to it from UWorld as well. So that's like my recommendation for just studying in general. And so between now and when the course would start, really anything you're doing for MCAT is going to be useful. I think UWorld's probably the most efficient use of your time, but if you're not, you know, if you're doing UWorld and consistently getting like below 40 or 50%, below 40% for sure, then you probably need to do some content. And if you do some UWorld stuff and get below 40%, you know what those questions were about. So go review the questions and then go either watch Khan Academy or read a Kaplan book, or I kind of like the Exam Crackers book lately. I've been shifting my allegiance a little bit in terms of books. Go look up some of that stuff on those topics that you missed, and then you can, you know, just repeat that process. I know it's, again, a long-winded answer, but I think that that's a good way of going about it. I'd also recommend looking at our the webinar videos that we have. Obviously, I made them, so I'm biased, but I think that those are kind of a useful starting point. Each of those is like super, super broad, where I covered a ton of stuff in a short amount of time. And so those could be a good guide to getting through some of this. And then Jordan asked, if we not started content review but have a solid base from prereqs, do I recommend doing the boot camp or no? And in that case, I definitely would recommend it. The boot camp is a good pass-through content. I really think that if you've not done any MCAT prep to this point, that you can keep up with this. It's going to push you, but I would, you know, much rather push you through content than allow you to stroll through it leisurely. Most of the time, if people are pushed on a full pass of content, they can get through it in 4 to 6 weeks. But if we allow them to just take as long as they want, then it can stretch on endlessly. Some of you probably have already had experiences with that personally. So that's my recommendation there, is that this is supposed to be a somewhat accelerated, but not overly accelerated pass-through content. By the end of this, you should be able to get through all of the content in a week before you take your test. I did it in a day before I took my exam, not because that's a good idea, but just because I was panicking before taking the test. So I read all the Kaplan books the last day. Don't do that. That's stupid. So yeah, I think that this should be a really good resource for you there. Thank you, Angela. That's super kind. Angela, I don't even know if I should read that. It sounds awful. Angela said, small plug for me and 1SM that we are the best MCAT resource for those who are new. Highly recommend. I really appreciate it. Angela's worked with us some already. Any other questions? I really appreciate all these questions, honestly. Like, this is the most helpful thing because I could get in here and ramble forever, but I have no idea of knowing what is and isn't pertinent to you. Thank you, Emma. I really appreciate that. That's so kind of both of you. It seriously is. It does feel really good to get the positive feedback from this. Because I do work super hard on it. I also want as much negative feedback as anybody's willing to give me. Because that's what really helps us make things better. Positive feedback helps to make things better too, because I can know what we're doing right and know not to kill those programs. But very specific negative feedback is fantastic. I mean, you don't have to like shout it from the mountaintops. You can just tell me, but you're also welcome to say it in here. I always say that if something is bad with our program, it's only bad because I don't know about it. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Emma said that I'm welcome, that she's skeptical with these kinds of things, but that my openness and frankness is appreciated. Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I do try to be as open and straightforward about this stuff as possible because I'm much better off making less money in a given situation and just providing good advice and services than I am just trying to like maximize immediate return on investment. Because my whole strategy here is make it good and it will work. And so far it's doing that. Thank you, Emma. I'm only reading this stuff because I want anybody who's rewatching the video after to be able to read it. So Emma said she's had experiences with other people doing this and it's been inefficient and a waste of time. I feel like I should have somebody else reading these because it sounds bad coming from me. And that my Sunday webinars were helpful. Yeah, I appreciate that as well. Thank you. Yeah, the webinars are a lot like what this course is going to be. The course is going to be a little bit deeper in specific topics because in the webinars I've tried to be as much out there as possible because they don't happen super frequently. Whereas the course is like 3 days a week, every week for 6 weeks. So we can afford to spend more time on one given thing. Like the webinars that I've done, one of them was like all organic chemistry. Another one was like all of biochemistry. Another one was hacking the chem phys section. So those are like super broad topics that many of you have seen. Yeah, you have. Sarah just asked if they have, if you all have access to the webinars. Yes, you absolutely have access to the webinars. They're actually on YouTube right now. But one of the things we're planning on doing to give more resources for this course is to go in and cut them up into bite-sized chunks. So like the last one I did, I think was like almost 3 hours long. We want to cut them up into small chunks and identify specific ones so that you don't have to just scrub through a 3-hour timeline to try to find the one part where I talked about like fluids or something. That way you can just watch 5 to 10 minute videos instead. You on the webinars are on YouTube. I can actually give me 1 second. I can see if I can like find the link to all of them. The email I sent out today to all of you, I think everybody here got the email that I sent today. It actually has, I think, a link to the YouTube playlist, or maybe it doesn't. Well, regardless, here's the YouTube playlist with the webinars. Oh, 1 second. I sent it to an individual on accident. Try again. Here is the YouTube playlist with the webinars. I can also just pull it up right here. Not all of them are posted yet. Zoom early on was making it very, very difficult for us to edit the webinars. We figured out a way around that. So subsequent webinars and all of these meetings also should be really super easy to get up very quickly. But I think we've done 6 total and there are 4 of these posted right now. Yeah, no problem at all. And the first few, the first few were kind of awkward because so I used to teach the Kaplan Live Online course for like 4 years, which frankly, like that is going to help us a ton in this because I've seen what goes well and what doesn't in those courses. But the reason I say that is because whenever I first started OneSource as a one-on-one tutoring thing, it was a difficult transition because I was used to just monologuing, and you don't do that when you're tutoring one-on-one. You ask questions to bring the person along. During the webinars, my difficulty early on, especially in those first few, if you look at them, was that I was having a hard time not doing that. I wanted to ask for feedback with everything instead of saying, okay, we'll pull up a poll or something like that. I always wanted to ask the open-ended rhetorical or not rhetorical question. And so now I've been able to adjust back. It's kind of an interesting shift. But in the most recent one, the most recent 3, actually, I think I did a much better job on that front. 2 of which aren't posted, but anyway, there's just a difference in structure. But with the polls, it helps a lot too, because I always want to see if those of you who are present are understanding what we're talking about, because if so, then it's a huge error to continue talking about it. But if not, then it's a huge error to move on. So all of the feedback is amazing. You'll hear that a lot in medicine as you continue your career. 3rd year is all about feedback. Yeah, no problem. Any other questions on any of this?
I have a quick question about like the content that's going to be covered. So would we be going through just the high yield components of the content, or like the AAMC content list guide? Will we be going through all of that? Or would we be basing it off of like books from like Kaplan?
Not basing it off of books from Kaplan. I've read that stupid AAMC PDF a couple of times. And so we're going to get it straight from the AAMC in terms of like what is and is not relevant. That changes ever so slightly over time. Psych Soc has moved more than the other sections over the last few years, but by definition, a 36-hour course, we're not going to say everything. Like there it would take way more hours just to read all of the things that you need to know. But what we're going to do is high yield is going to be important, but also important is going to be I guess that was going to be high yield, things that are historically tested with the most frequency, also the ways in which they are tested. So like, for instance, we could talk about the fact that, an example I've been giving recently is that we can talk about the fact that phenylalanine and tyrosine are different amino acids that have pretty similar, but importantly nuanced different structures. But the AAMC is not going to ask you what's the difference between phenylalanine and tyrosine. They're going to say that tyrosine 532 was subbed out for a phenylalanine residue due to this 1 point mutation. And because of that, you get this disease. What is the underlying mechanism? Or, require you recognize that tyrosine can be phosphorylated, phenylalanine can't. And so whenever you get that enzyme subbing one amino acid for the other, you change the ability of it to be phosphorylated, which could lead to inability to have a conformational shift, which then causes it to be not regulated anymore. So that's the kind of stuff that we're going to talk about. Also trying to interconnect ideas across disciplines. If any of you have talked to me very much, I sound like a broken record on this. I've already said it a couple times in this meeting, but I want to teach things like electrochemistry with electricity from physics. And I also want to teach it with equilibrium from Gen Chem. And I also want to teach it with nervous system from biology, because all of those convalesce to make the Nernst equation, which tells you how ions flow across a membrane in an action potential, but also in a cardiac muscle contraction, skeletal muscle contraction. It's also relevant for the mitochondrion based on, like pH being really low in the intermembrane space and high in the matrix, how you generate a proton motive force to generate ATP. So that's how we, like right there, we can connect. And we can even throw Psych Soc into that too, because the action potential stuff is moderately relevant for Psych Soc, or at least the emergent phenomena are. So connecting ideas like that is super important, because you're never going to see stuff that you've seen over and over again on the MCAT. Most of the passages are pretty novel. And so if you have a deep understanding rather than just like a long list of memorized stuff, then you're going to be a lot better positioned to do this. I hope that answers. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was only just asking because I know we have a few weeks before the course, so I wanted to jump ahead because I'm very slow to
Oh
like
yeah,
start pre-reading or like start prepping for the course
I see.
before we get into it, so I'm like not all lost.
Yeah, absolutely. I can send you will you send me an email and ask me to send you what we're going to use as kind of our syllabus for this? I
Yes,
haven't finalized everything yet, but I've got a pretty good idea of how we're going to go through stuff, so I can send it over. Then that
I
way
would
you can
really
get started.
appreciate that.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. I can just send it to, I'm trying to think. I don't know if I have a list of everybody who actually joined the meeting because it's a very different list from the people who all signed up. Trying to think how to do this. Send me an email. If yeah, go ahead and send me an email if you want that syllabus and I'll send it to you. Everybody who wants it, send me an email. I'm just going to send you all my email address in here. It's just joe@onesourcemedicine.com. So everybody who wants that, shoot an email over to joe@onesourcemedicine.com. I was tempted to have you send it to one of our other people so that they could field it, but send it to me and I will get back to you with the syllabus as it's currently constructed. There are going to be a couple slight changes that I know are going to happen. One of which is that I put too much psych in, or not, sorry, I didn't put enough psych in up front. And so we're going to come back and put at least one. We're probably going to put one meeting in psych and sub out one of the other meetings that I think is less pertinent, maybe one of the full length exam review meetings, because I think that those are sort of the flex things that might not matter as much. Although if any of you disagree with that, let me know right now and I will change my mind because I want to know what's most pertinent for you. But either way, I'll send the syllabus to whoever emails me. And that'll probably go out tomorrow too, by the way, because I do want to finalize a couple of things and get rid of some of the. I have a whenever I make spreadsheets like that, I put a lot of thoughts just in random cells all over the place, and so I want to make sure that it's not just chaos when I send it to you. Any other questions at all? I'm not in any kind of hurry right now. I think I do have a meeting at like, when is my next meeting? Yeah, I've still got 23 minutes where I can go through stuff, so I'm open to talk about whatever. I need somebody to be like an auctioneer in here, like going once, going twice. But I also don't want to pressure any of you. I just don't want to sit here awkwardly staring.
Just to be clear about
Yeah.
where the content is coming from,
Mhm.
it's not coming from any books or things like that. It's going to be presented by a tutor, kind of taught like a lecture almost.
Yeah, yeah, it's gonna be a lecture style. And we'll assign content. So I'll tell you, for instance, like in the syllabus, we'll say if you're wanting to use if you're using, for instance, Kaplan books as your primary means of content review, these are the chapters that are relevant for this lecture. Or if you're using Khan Academy videos as your primary means of review, these are the videos that are relevant for this lecture. That way, anybody, that way we're not biased toward one resource because I know some people are going to be coming from Kaplan, some people from Princeton, some people might be using exam crackers. So we're going to try to outline the pertinent chapters in each thing. And I'm also just going to say like this is covering equilibrium kinetics, all of that. With equilibrium kinetics, I would normally do like solubility and acids and bases. And so that will all be present in the syllabus. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Emma said for the tutoring session, not this. Wait, sorry, I think you had a typo in there. Or advanced version. Can we pay for 10 hours tutoring straight? Pay as you go. Link does not work as I expected. Emma, I'm not really sure what you mean by that.
I'm referring to the general
Sorry. Your audio is pretty muffled. Sorry.
Sorry, I'm referring to the tutoring session. That you have like 10 hours, 20 hours.
Yeah, we have I couldn't quite hear what you said still. So let me just tell me if I'm right or wrong on this.
Package.
Oh yeah, so okay, so we have the tutoring. We have a lot of different tutoring packages. There's 6 on the website. They range from 10 to 60 hours. But if you want to do, I think you said something about a pay-as-you-go link. We have there are no pay-as-you-go links on the site. However, if you want to sign up for a tutoring package and do like for instance, a plan paying monthly over the course of X number of months between now and your test date, I'm happy to set that up for you. You just have to send me an email or text me or something. Yeah, thank you both. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Jordan. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you, so many of you taking so much time to hear all of this as well. I seriously appreciate all the questions because I haven't been able to anticipate every question. I try to, but it's really good to hear it all from you. Let's see. So Emma, did I answer your question there though, that I could set up the tutoring plan, the payment plan on any of the tutoring options for you? And then you would also ask whether you can start the tutoring after the boot camp. Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
better?
I'm sorry.
Can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, way better now.
Is that better?
Yeah, way
Okay,
better.
hold on 1 second. I can now I can't hear you. All right.
Oh no.
Switch out my headphones.
Gotcha.
Just can't hear anything. Oh, I was a little later after everybody else.
Yeah, no worries. Let's see. Looking for others. Yeah, I think I was just scrolling back to see if I had addressed everybody's questions here. Can you hear me now, Emma?
Yeah, I can hear you, but
Okay, perfect. So what were you asking?
better? Okay. So I'm referring to the package, the MCAT, the regular experience plan. So you have 10 hours, 10 hours per week, and so on. Just, my question is, I feel like I would benefit from those tutoring sessions later on, but not right now. I want to go through the camp first.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to go through the boot camp first. I think that for me, it's personally, I think that teacher will better. And so say for example, you have 10 hour session, 10-hour sessions, tutoring. I guess we can set up in terms of how we would like to work with the tutor on an individualized basis, in terms of maybe 1 week a week and for an hour or 2 hours a week for 5 weeks and so on.
Yeah.
I guess my question is, in that package, can we just so personally I would just really need the tutoring in the phone. So can we just have the tutoring, but I can have the 65 hour for 10 hours, or do we need to sign up for the missions as well? Because I know you included the UWorld.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. So if you already have a UWorld account, for instance, then yeah, we'll drop the price of the tutoring. So yeah, I always do that. That if you want to get 10 hours of the 10-hour tutoring plan and not have UWorld attached because you maybe already have a UWorld account, then yeah, we'll give you, it's a $209 discount that we give you. So the price ends up being $15.91. The reason for that is because that's how much we pay. That's how much we pay UWorld per subscription for that. Yeah.
Is that going to be a year subscription?
The what? I'm sorry.
How long is the subscription of the UWorld?
Oh, that's the 90-day subscription. So yeah, their prices on their site, I think, is $300 for the 90-day subscription. Okay. So yeah, so we pay $209, and so that's the discount we give you.
Yeah. So basically $1,600 for 10 hours.
Yes, yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
And that would include the $100 admission licensing credit.
Yeah, that would include the that would include sorry, that I was just trying to that includes the $100 of admissions advising credit as well. Yeah.
So for us, if we're able to sign up for the boot camp, I would have to first sign up for the tutoring in order to get a discount.
In order
For
to get
the
the
for
33 extra percent
the
discount.
yeah
Yeah,
the
yeah.
extra $400 for the I would sign up for the tutoring session. That would be beneficial. And can we start a tutoring session like anytime later as opposed to immediately? Because I
Oh,
don't think I really did until probably spring.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can. So once you sign up with for tutoring with us, those tutoring hours are never going to expire. Like you can keep them. You can do
Okay.
tutoring 4 years from now if you want, provided our company doesn't fail or something. So, so which I don't think will happen. Over my dead body is kind of what I want to say on that. But yeah, the tutoring hours will always be good, so you can use them at whatever pace you want.
Okay.
Let's see. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything. Some people have been direct messaging me instead of messaging the whole group, so it's kind of hard to monitor what things people were asking here. Yeah, I think we're caught up. Does any of the rest of you have any other questions?
Thank you so much, Jill.
Oh yeah, no problem at all. Thank you for the questions. Seriously. And so for anybody who's for either Sana or Henry or anybody who is listening to this video, what Emma was asking there is she's not currently a tutoring student with us. She's thought about joining our program and has been coming to all of our webinars. And she was thinking about signing up for the 10-hour tutoring plan because our tutoring students get an additional 33% off of the course, and that she wants to use the tutoring as well. And so but she doesn't want the tutoring until later in the spring once she gets once she gets closer to her dedicated MCAT window. And so she was asking if she could purchase tutoring hours now and then just not start the tutoring program until spring gets here once the boot camp is over and she's ready to move forward with the tutoring. And my answer to that is just, yeah, absolutely. You can use your tutoring hours at whatever pace you would like. I have had people in the past. I've actually had one student who signed up for a 60-hour tutoring plan with us about a month or two after I started the company, and she's actually just now doing her MCAT prep with us because she had decided to go do a master's degree instead of going into medical school, and so that's just what's worked out better for her. And so that we can absolutely do that. That's no big deal at all. The tutoring hours will always be good.
And if you plan to do something like that, can we reach out to you to try and lay out like I guess, big picture plan?
So absolutely. Yeah.
You can maximize, I guess, just like individual tutoring in combination with a potential course and like getting you to that final goal.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to help set that up. Definitely. Yeah.
So I'll probably reach out to see what you might have in mind.
Yeah, for sure. I would love to, and since, well, we can talk about the different tutors and everything as well, but I've got a few tutors who I know are going to have a pretty heavy involvement in the course. And so I think it would be good to pair you, if you do decide to go that route, to pair you with one of them, because that way they'll know exactly what's going on with the course also. And they'll be, kind of the people who are doing some of the lectures that I'm not doing in the course.
Okay. And I know we spoke about this a while ago, but if someone were to go with you as a tutor,
yeah,
I know you said there is a price difference. Do you have a figure on that yet?
Yeah, that's a moving target all the time because a lot of it has to do with my availability. Just because I have finite hours. I've had a number of people opt for that recently. And so right now it's around the price is around 1.85. It's just what we do is a multiplier of whatever plan you want. And then it just has to, what that multiplier number has to do with how many students I'm working with and how many hours a week I have and stuff like that. I'll never take on a student if I don't actually have time to do it, because I've seen that happen before and it's just a disaster. So I do still have some time where I could make that happen.
Okay.
But so that's what the rate multiplier is right now. I reevaluate this every week.
And I guess obviously you have full confidence in your tutors.
Right.
So, I mean, do you think you offer something that is like so much better than them at times?
That's a
I mean,
fantastic question.
you said this already. Yeah, I guess you don't really have to answer it. Like certain subjects, they're better and more helpful. Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's a really good question though. So I had a parent ask me this just the other day, because he was considering whether he wanted to have his daughter work with me or one of the other tutors. And my answer to that is that I think so. I'm not going to have somebody tutor with us if they're not really good at what they do. I have been doing this longer than everybody else, just because most people who took the MCAT when I did are attendings now. Uh, and so there are some things that I have a deeper knowledge base on, and just more experience teaching. So I'd be lying if to say that there wasn't some difference in some places. However, there's also, like you pointed out, difference in the opposite direction on a few topics. Those tend to have more to do with psych soc than anything, because I've just frankly taught that less. I've had other people teach psych soc most of the time, because when I took the MCAT, psych soc wasn't on it. And yes, I've gotten a 132 on that section, but I learned all of it during psych rotations and during my psych classes in med school. So my perspective is weird on psych soc. And
So,
oh yeah, go ahead.
so if let's say a student built something where they had, you know, certain set of hours with you, and a
Mhm.
certain set of hours on those other subjects like psych soc, maybe
Right.
cars. How would that work? Like payment wise, am I paying 1.85 for, like, let's say I get a 10-hour package is for
Yeah.
the whole thing, or just for, if I go 50-50, 1.85 for 5 hours and just one multiplier, or not even a multiplier for the other?
The way we've done that in the past, because I've had a few people do that, is that we will the meetings where I'm in it are just different than build differently than the meetings where there's another tutor. It's just like one extra step on the part of our video editor. He takes care of it because we automate all the hour tracking from the data that he uploads in the videos. So it's not a big deal. Yeah, you would pay the different hourly rates on those different meetings. Does that answer your question? I'm also happy to show you like the nuts and bolts of how that gets done.
Yeah, no, I just loosely understanding that it is, I guess, price differentially is good.
Okay, great. So, but if you want to go into it more, I'm happy to.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you. I know you have a meeting in a few, so.
Oh yeah, no, you're good. I appreciate the question seriously. Like the more questions we have, the better.
Yeah.
On just to finish what I was going to say briefly about the tutoring is what I told the parent of that student is, if I had to say whether whether I was 185% of whatever one of the other tutors is, I would say no. Because they do such a great job on the stuff that they're doing. I'm not 185% better. There are some things that I'm better at for sure, but the added value averaged over all the things is not 185%. Just so best bang for your buck, I would say, comes with one of those in my opinion. But it might also be the case that your hybrid plan you're talking about here could be best bang for your buck. But generally speaking, I would say no, I'm not 185% better, because they're really good, and I don't think it's possible to be 185% better.
Mm-hmm. And you said initially a few weeks ago that sometimes you pop in with students.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I cover
kind of veering away from now that you're getting busier.
I still cover meetings whenever I have to. The buck stops with me on all of this, and so if your tutor's going to be gone for one meeting and it's just easier for me to just do it than it is for me to coordinate somebody else doing it, then oftentimes I'll do that, especially if I have time, if I have the availability. If your tutor or if you and your tutor aren't going to line up for like several weeks at a time, then I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to have somebody else coordinate that, just because, yeah, I'm finding more and more recently that the time I have available is the limited reagent on this entire company right now, which is just poor design on my part, frankly, but we grew really fast. So, I'm trying to offload a lot of that administrative stuff, and at which point I will be teaching more, because frankly, I'd much rather be teaching than doing payroll. I hate doing that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know if that answers your question. That's kind of a wishy-washy response again. It's on a very like sub person by person basis, I think, and just like a situation by situation basis, I think is more what I meant.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem. And also, just to be clear, when that happens, like if I'm just subbing in because your tutor had to go to a conference or something like that, then we don't do the hourly rate multiplier just because that's ridiculous. You know, like
Yeah.
we're not going to do that unless you signed up for that.
Okay. All right. This has been very helpful. I appreciate it, and I'll reach out shortly. I'm sorry I've been kind of not communicating as well. I've just gotten
know.
lost in my studies for the semester, and
Yeah.
it is
No,
time to start
I
figuring out plans.
I totally understand. You don't have to apologize for that. I am in my personal life the worst ever when it comes to communicating on cell phone and text. Then I don't look at my phone only for like I'm super responsive when it comes to this company, but that's it. Outside of that, yeah. That's yeah.
Cool. Okay. I'm gonna hop off now. Thank you so
All right,
much.
cool. Yeah, no problem. Have a great rest of the weekend. And yeah, just reach out if you have any additional questions or if you want to touch base soon.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Talk to you soon. See ya. Sana, did you have any other questions?
No, I didn't know everyone left. I was just taking some notes and
Yeah.
listening to
Oh,
you in the
okay, gotcha.
background.
Yeah. I know you're
Yeah.
good. Like the last person literally just left. So I mean I suspected that was probably the case. I had it happen the other day where somebody
No, I started writing up my email that I was gonna send to you, and I had a
Oh,
few
nice.
questions in there. So I was just like, okay, if I need to come in, I could listen to it.
Yeah, sure. Well, if you want, if it's cool with you, if you could just ask the questions now, that's way easier, so I don't have to type the response.
You're lazy like I am.
Yeah.
Actually, my honest question was that I know that we've gone through my MCAT history. Do
Yeah.
you think by doing this boot camp, because I don't know how beneficial tutoring will be, because I do better in a small group setting and it's more structured.
Mhm.
For me to score my goal score, which was like a 497, I told you, by I was thinking late March, early March.
Yeah. Sorry, what was what was the question part of that?
Like, do you think by doing boot camp, it would help me increase my score by that much? With like your past history of working with students, if you've had someone work in a similar situation as I have, or by your trajectory from the program.
Yeah, I'm looking at I just pulled up your notes to see like what because we just talked the other day, but I
Yeah.
don't remember everything. So I was just like pulling it up and reading through it really quickly. So I think that this course, my goal with this course is for it to be a affordable, really good option for people who are prepping for the MCAT, generally speaking, because we're going to go through all of the content and apply strategies to all of it and help integrate everything. All the stuff I've been saying. I don't want to be a broken record on that front. I think it should be the most efficient way to carry out the next 6 weeks of your prep process. It's also the case, though, that it does take more than 6 weeks to get a really good MCAT prep, process in. And so I think it could be useful to, if we end up doing the sort of like version 2.0 of the course later, like the advanced version, then that in conjunction with this, I think should be really, really good. We haven't run this course before, frankly. So I don't want to speak out of turn and say like, oh, it'll for sure do that. I'm also never going to do that just because I hate with a passion the higher score guarantees that other companies give that are just totally misrepresentative of anything. How they have.
Oh no, I've tried it and it's never worked out in the past. So.
It's wild to me that it's legal for them to do that, but yeah, I don't know. They have all I guess.
They have a very, I think when you sign like their agreement, they said you have to take it within like 30 days of the course ending and stuff like that. So they're never gonna give you your money back.
Right. No, absolutely. It's ridiculous. I'm not going to say like guaranteed necessarily anything other than that, the course will happen when it's supposed to happen and it'll be a really good means for you to move through MCAT prep. However, I do think so you do need to do content review to do well on the MCAT. I think that for you, I would recommend supplementing with UWorld, which I know you've used in the past. And I know I wrote down here that you said it was pretty good. And then we could also help you think about like a good study strategy moving through that as well. So moving through UWorld plus how to leverage the course with UWorld throughout the process. And I think that should be a really good way of going about it, especially for you, because since you said that you don't really want to do that many, one-on-one sessions, you'd rather be in a group setting, then I think that this would definitely provide that. And it's, it's frankly cheaper than the than the tutoring is as well. So
yeah, no, I'm trying
yeah.
to look at the cost of like the course and the tutoring hours, and I really thought about the same thing that Emma did. Like if I buy it now, use it later. But taking it, this would be my 6th time taking it. Taking the exam for the 6th time, I know it's not going to be effective later on either, because if I'm not scoring within that range, then my confidence is definitely going to go down, and I'm just going to be really pushing through it. And I don't think any tutor could help me at that point. So I really just wanted to like make sure that I myself am putting in the effort and putting my best foot forward, along with choosing the right company, because every company's intentions are not the same as yours.
I appreciate that. Yeah. I mean, every company is ultimately a company and looking to make profit and everything at the end of all of it. But I've just chosen to go about it a very different way, which is to be more genuine. I'm doing this to not I think that you can both offer high value and be profitable at the same time.
Yeah.
And so that's been my, just make stuff good and it works. That's all I'm trying to do here. So I really appreciate that. I, have worked pretty hard to make this good and not screw people over. and
yeah, no, you saw me last week. You saw me at like 12 o'clock in the morning, my time.
Yeah.
So it's probably an hour earlier for you. Like there's like tutors that won't respond at like a particular hour, and I've paid like $400 an hour for that.
That's
so.
ridiculous. Yeah, that's
No.
really, really high. We don't have anything that costs that much.
Yeah, no, I do see that. So that was one of my questions. And then my other question, I'm sorry if you have to step out.
Oh no, you're good. Oh shoot, I do have a meeting here in a second, but go ahead and ask your question. I'll send the person the
Can
text.
I email you to help me make an outside plan of like how many questions I should be doing with UWorld, and to really correlate with the course?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's something we'll do with the course anyway. Like the
Okay,
courses.
okay.
Yeah. We'll set up the plan for you. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Oh yeah, no problem at all. Have a great rest of the day. Feel free to shoot me an email or text me or whatever if you have any other questions at all.
I will. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Have a good one.
You too.
Thanks. Bye. So that wraps it up for those of you watching the video. I hope this was useful for you. Please feel free to reach out to me if you have any additional questions. My email is joe@onesourcemedicine.com. You can also just get on the website, message the chat. That'll get to me eventually. I look forward to hearing from you. Look forward to working with you, hopefully, and seeing how good we can make this thing be. Have a good one.